Prince Elrond of Andoria had only known war for as long as he could remember. The kingdom of Andoria, a magical realm filled with beauty and light, had been under siege by dark forces for centuries. These malevolent beings, driven by an insatiable hunger for power, sought to consume the light of Andoria and plunge the world into eternal darkness. Elrond, the last heir of the royal bloodline, was trained in the ancient arts of magic and combat, destined to lead his people to victory and restore peace to the land. But despite his best efforts, the darkness continued to encroach, threatening to consume all that he held dear. The final battle came on a day that began like any other. The skies over Andoria were tinged with the first light of dawn, yet a foreboding sense of doom hung in the air. Elrond stood at the front lines, his sword glowing with the power of his ancestors, ready to face the enemy. His heart was heavy with the knowledge that this could be their last stand. The dark forces had grown stronger and their numbers overwhelming, as the ancient protective barriers of Andoria were beginning to falter. As the battle commenced, Elrond fought valiantly, his magic crackling through the air as he struck down foe after foe. His spells blazed with the fury of 1,000 suns, and his sword danced through the air with deadly precision. Yet for every enemy he defeated, 10 more took his place. The tide of darkness was relentless, threatening to engulf him and all he loved. Amid the chaos, Elrond caught sight of his father, King Eldarion, battling at the heart of the fray. The king, though weakened by age, fought with the desperation of a man defending his kingdom to his last breath. Their eyes met across the battlefield, and Elrond saw a flicker of sorrow in his father's gaze, as if he too knew that this battle was unwinnable. A moment later, King Eldarion was overwhelmed by the dark forces, disappearing beneath a wave of shadow. As the battle raged on, Elrond felt a deep sense of foreboding that he could not shake. The screams of his people filled his ears, and the once bright skies of Andoria darkened with the shadow of defeat. Elrond realized with a heavy heart that he was losing this battle. The dark forces breached the walls of the capital, spreading destruction in the wake, and Elrond's magic, powerful as it was, began to falter under the weight of despair. In a desperate attempt to save his kingdom, Elrond unleashed a powerful burst of magic, channeling all of his energy into one final strike. This force of the blast was immense, and for a moment the darkness seemed to retreat. But as the light faded, Elrond felt the ground shift beneath him. He was no longer in Andoria. In an instant, he was transported to a place unfamiliar to him, a medieval Earth. Confused and disoriented, Elrond looked around at the dense forest that surrounded him. The air was different, the magic of Andoria no longer present. He tried to sense his home, to feel the connection to his people, but it was as if Andoria had vanished from existence. Devastated, Elrond fell to his knees, the weight of his failure crashing down on him. He had lost everything, his kingdom, his people, and his purpose. Alone in this strange new world, Elrond vowed to find a way back, but deep down, he feared that his realm was lost forever. Days turned into weeks as Elrond wandered the unfamiliar world. A medieval Earth filled with strange customs and people. The disconnection from his home and magic that once pulsed through his veins left him feeling hollow and lost. Yet despite his despair, the prince's innate sense of duty compelled him to continue moving forward, seeking any trace of his realm or way back to Andoria. The dense forests and sprawling plains of this new world were a stark contrast to the enchanted lands of his home, and the lack of magical energy made him feel like a shadow of his former self. However, his training and discipline kept him focused, even as doubts gnawed at his resolve. His journey eventually led him to a kingdom in turmoil. The once prosperous land was now ruled by a cruel tyrant named King Alaric, whose iron grip had plunged the people into poverty and fear. The villages Elrond passed through were marked by oppression, with guards patrolling the streets, enforcing the king's harsh decrees. The sight stirred something with Elrond, a reminder of the darkness he had fought against in Andoria, and the responsibility he had to protect the innocent. The sight of children cowering in fear and elders struggling to survive in a world that had turned against them ignited a spark of anger in his heart, and with it, a renewed sense of purpose. One evening, while resting in a secluded forest, Elrond encountered a group of rebels hiding in the shadows. They were a ragtag band of men and women, weary but determined to free their kingdom from Alaric's rule. At first, they were weary of Elrond, his foreign appearance and demeanor setting him apart. His clothes, once regal and adorned with the symbols of Andoria, were now tattered, yet the aura of a warrior still clung to him. But as he listened to the stories of suffering and saw the fire in their eyes, he realized that their fight mirrored his own battle against the dark forces. Elrond revealed his true identity to the rebels, telling them of his fallen kingdom and the magic he possessed. Though skeptical at first, the rebels soon saw the sincerity in his words and the power he wielded. His tales of Andoria, a land of magic and light, filled them with a sense of wonder and hope that they had long forgotten. They invited him to join the cause, and Elrond accepted, seeing in them the same courage and spirit that had once thrived in Andoria. As Elrond fought alongside the rebels, he began to regain a sense of purpose. His magical abilities, though diminished in this world, proved invaluable in the skirmishes against Alaric's forces. Elrond became a mentor and protector to the rebels, sharing his knowledge of strategy and combat. He trained them in the ways of warfare, teaching them how to harness their inner strength and fight not just with swords, but with their hearts. In return, they became his new family, their camaraderie filling the void left by the loss of his homeland. But as the rebels grew stronger, so did the threat of retribution from King Alaric. The tyrant, sensing the growing resistance, increased his efforts to crush the rebellion. Elrond knew that time for a final confrontation was approaching, and he vowed that this time he would not fail. This new world had given him a second chance, and he would not make the same mistakes again. As the rebellion against King Alaric gained momentum, Elrond's bond with the rebels deepened. He had come to care for them as he had his people in Andoria, and the thought of losing them filled him with a renewed determination. The rebels too looked to Elrond as their leader, inspired by his unwavering commitment and the glimpse of magic that he had occasionally displayed. However, just as victory seemed within reach, a new and sinister threat emerged. One evening, as the rebels prepared for a critical strike against one of Alaric's strongholds, Elrond felt a familiar yet horrifying presence in the air. The dark forces from Andoria had found them, their malevolent energy seeping into this world. The news of their arrival spread fear among the rebels, but Elrond knew that this was no ordinary enemy. It was the very darkness that had destroyed his homeland, now threatening to consume the last place he had left to protect. Elrond quickly gathered the rebels, explaining the gravity of the situation. The dark forces were not just a threat to the rebellion, they were a danger to the entire kingdom. If they were not stopped, everything they had fought for would be lost. The rebels, trusting Elrond's judgment, steered themselves for the battle ahead, but the fear of the unknown weighed heavily on their hearts. The dark forces began their assault on the kingdom, attacking villages and cities with ruthless efficiency. Their power was immense, far beyond anything the rebels had faced before. Elrond's magic, though strong, was no longer enough to hold them at bay. He struggled to protect the people, but the darkness was relentless, feeding in his despair and guilt. In a desperate attempt to save the kingdom, Elrond sought out the source of the dark forces, hoping to confront them directly. He found himself standing before a powerful sorcerer and an emissary of the darkness who had crossed the realms to find him. The sorcerer revealed that the dark forces had been drawn to Elrond's presence, sensing his magic and the lingering connection to Andoria. They had come to finish what they had started in their homeland. Now they would bring ruin to this world as well. Elrond tried to reason with the sorcerer, pleading with him to spare this world and its people. But the sorcerer, driven by an insatiable hunger for power and destruction, refused. The stage was set for a final, cataclysmic battle, one that would determine the fate of both Elrond and the kingdom he had sworn to protect. The dark forces surged across the kingdom, their malevolent energy threatening to engulf everything in their path. Elrond knew that this battle would be unlike anything he had ever fought before. The stakes were higher, the enemy more powerful, and the weight of the past failures hung heavily on his shoulders. But also, he knew that he could not allow history to repeat itself. This time, he would not let the darkness win. As the rebels prepared for the final confrontation, Elrond gathered them for one last meeting. He spoke of his journey and the loss of Andoria, and the guilt that had driven him to this point. But he had also spoke of hope, of the courage he had seen in each of them, and the belief that they could overcome even the greatest of evils. The rebels, though afraid, were inspired by his words. They knew that they were fighting not just for their freedom, but for the very survival of the world. The battle began at dawn, with the rebels launching a coordinated attack on the dark forces. Elrond led the charge, his magic blazing as he struck down wave after wave of enemies. But the darkness was unyielding, pushing the rebels back with every advance. The sorcerer, commanding the dark forces, unleashed a torrent of destructive spells, tearing through the ranks of the rebellion. Elrond fought with everything he had, but he could feel the strength of the dark forces overwhelming him. The rebels were being pushed to their limits, and it seemed as though all hope was lost. But in that moment of despair, Elrond made a decision. He knew that the only way to stop the darkness was to seal the portal through which they had come, preventing any more of their kind from entering this world. With a surge of magic, Elrond forced the dark forces back towards the portal, but they were too strong, their power too great to be contained by his magic alone. Realizing they had no other choice, Elrond made the ultimate sacrifice. He channeled all of his remaining energy into a spell that would create a barrier, sealing the portal and trapping the dark forces on the other side. As the barrier formed, Elrond felt his body begin to transform. The magic consumed him, turning him into a living embodiment of the barrier, a great ancient tree that would stand as a guardian, preventing the dark forces from ever returning. The rebels watched in awe and sorrow in Elrond, their leader and protector, becoming the eternal sentinel of their world. His sacrifice ensured that the kingdom would be safe, but it came at the cost of his own life. In the years that followed the final battle, the kingdom began to heal. The rebels, now free from the tyranny of King Allard and the threat of the dark forces, rebuilt their homes and their lives. The people of the kingdom, once oppressed and fearful, found hope and strength in the memory of the battle that had saved them. But more than anything, they remembered the sacrifice of Elrond, the prince from another realm who had given everything to protect them. The great tree that had once been Elrond stood at the heart of the kingdom, its roots deep in the earth, its branches reaching towards the heavens. It became a symbol of peace and protection, a living monument to the hero who had saved their world. The people revered the tree, knowing that it was Elrond who kept them safe, even in death. On that note, that wraps up this story. If you haven't already, I would appreciate if you like and subscribe. Also, leave a comment on any stories you want me to bring to life. But other than that, while this story may come to an end, the start of another begins.